The new LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't undo your last hire. The lone wolf, who you thought was a good collaborator because you didn't have the right candidate insights. But once you hired them, it was all hoarding info, declining meetings, and howling at the full moon? But LinkedIn Hiring Pro can go deeper than just the resume to find you a perfect fit by using insights from the LinkedIn network to give you a short list of best fit candidates. Hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/quality.
This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
Welcome to Diz and Hers, the show about what's happening in the Disney community from his, hers, and your perspective. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Eric, and on today's show, we talk about the newest restrictions put on transportation at Disney Springs and why the community is a bit divided. We also talk about Toy Story 5 and your favorite Pixar films.
Yes, but before we get started, we want to remind you that Diz and Hers can be found on all your favorite podcast platforms, also in video format on YouTube and Spotify. We'd love it if you could head over to Apple, leave us a quick rating or review, and let us know what you want to hear us talk about on a future episode.
Yeah, so this week, Lauren, I think everybody has been talking. At first, I thought it was a no story. I didn't really pay much attention to it. And then it just kept showing up. And we have like actual news stations picking this up, maybe even if it's Orlando news. But the Walt Disney World, Disney Springs buses and transportation systems is all of the conversation. And it looks like starting on June 28th, there's a new policy that limits the use of resort buses and water taxis to Disney Resort hotel guests and or guests with dining or experience reservations. So in a nutshell, explain to us what does that mean? That was very news driven, what I read from the show notes here. What does that really mean?
Yes. So, I did want to say here, if this is a show about covering the Disney community, this has been the community conversation since Friday, and it's like not dying down. Like it was still in my feed even this morning. But anyways, so what people are talking about is that there's been this little loophole, I guess, that you could go and park over at Disney Springs. Then you could take a bus or a boat to any resort. And you could say that we wanted to go to the Poly and get some Captain Cooks and shop around the boutique or just smell the lobby. I don't know. We could do that. And so I believe years ago, or maybe I don't know, they do not have direct to the park transportation at Disney Springs. And I'm assuming that is because they don't want people parking over at Springs for free and then going to a park where you would need to pay for parking. So now they're closing that loop and they're saying that if you don't have a resort reservation or a dining reservation and quick service does not count, that you will not be able to use the transportation. And even if you do have dining reservations, you can only go 2 hours before. So you couldn't go hang out there all. But what are some of the reason, rationale? What are we seeing in the community?
Well, firstly, I just want to say that I didn't even know this was a thing, and I feel really rusty. That I used to know all these cheap hacks and tricks and ways to get out of paying for stuff and getting your experience to be better. But it is kind of ingenious though, if you're willing to take that time. I don't know when the buses start to run or so forth like that, but there's no doubt that getting to Magic Kingdom has always been the biggest pain in the butt to have to do the TTC and so forth. So I guess if you were like, hey, let's go to Springs, fairly easy to park, fairly consistent bus schedule, and then let's go to the Poly and then take the monorail, or let's even go to the Contemporary and just walk over to the Magic Kingdom. It gets you out of that mess that is the TTC and that end of night traveling, all that stuff. So I could see that happening, not just from a payment perspective of not wanting to pay money, but from a convenience perspective as well. So if that is the hack, I could see that being the main cause. But yeah, there's a lot of people, and I didn't realize that. And I think part of it is because there was once a podcast I loved. I absolutely love these guys. They were called The Backside of Magic, and they literally were giving you all of the hacks and these tricks and tips and stuff. And it was back in the day with magic bands and how you can, use somebody else's magic band to get extra trips or like extra rides and stuff. And they stopped making episodes. So I think I fell off of like all the hacks and stuff. But I believe a lot of influencers were probably talking about this.
Yeah, like that was one of the big things in the comments is saying, that the influencers are who ruined all of this. And I'm assuming we're also going to talk about the pool situation because that one they were calling out the influencers specifically.
Yeah. So I guess what's happening now is they previously tested this policy during like busy travel periods, like during spring break, and they were having people scan in their magic bands to verify their resort hotel. I assume that's something that's similar happening. I just don't know how they're verifying right now to say, hey, yes, you can come on this water taxi. You can, go on this. Because right now the restriction applies to Disney Spring bus loops, the Sassagoula River Cruise, which basically goes to Port Orleans, Old Key West, and Saratoga Springs as well. So like you are not just able to jump on those. And I do think that there is some chatter going on. For instance,
Wait, before you get to all the chatter, I did want to give you some verification from a former Disney World bus operation manager's perspective. Because to me, out of everything I read for the last, 4 or 5 days, this was the most interesting. And it's the why. And we like to
okay.
talk about that kind of stuff on the show. But, anyways, so what he was saying is that Disney buses are primarily funded through resort room rates, like you were saying. So resort guests are effectively paying for this service. For years, some day guests use Disney Springs buses as a workaround to avoid paying the parking fees or getting free transportation around Disney World. Social media made the hack much more widely known, but bus staffing, schedules, and budgets are based on the projected demand from the resort guests, not large numbers of day guests. So when extra people use the buses fill up faster, wait times increase, guest satisfaction drops, more staffing and operational costs are required. And so the most interesting thing that he used to summarize this was that it is increasing the time that the buses like are picking folks up, which then causes unhappy guests, which lowers their guest satisfaction. And that is those guests are less likely to return. And that is their whole benchmark. So when you are on property, they are trying to make it as magical as possible so that you want to come back and give them more of your money. So I thought that that was fascinating from an operations and logistics standpoint. It's not just like we're just closing the loop, like you're not going to get one over on us. It's really because it just wasn't made for that.
Well, I mean, I could see from a perspective, their goal is to charge a specific rate for a specific level of service. And if you can't give that service, if the buses are always packed and it's a bad experience, and you find out that people are kind of in there that aren't necessarily paying into the system, then I guess that's the main problem. But the opposite side would be of just Disney. You have tons of money. You have these people, they're coming to your parks. It's very rarely, I imagine, hey, we're going to go over to the Poly and not buy something or go to a bar or this or that. So the whole concept of like, are you taking this away, but you're still in your circle and we're still in your bubble and we're still giving you money. Just book more bus drivers, this and that. And I don't know what the current situation from a standpoint of, do they have issues getting bus drivers? Is there employment problems? Like, I don't understand all of that. I'm not in that circle and haven't really paid much attention to how that works. But I mean, if you're having issues and the people that are paying are being inconvenienced and it's a bad experience, then I could see that. But that's where it's all coming in online.
It's such a weird time, though. Like, I think I just saw an article in Southern Hospitality this week that was talking about how, like, resort hopping is one of the best activities that you can do at Disney. Like, and people are scheduling additional days onto their trip so that they could just do things in the bubble. but I'm assuming now it's like, we want to guarantee that you're going to, go to one of our sit down establishments and then shop and, whatever you're going to do there. So I see both sides. And from a pass holder perspective, they did make note that like pass holders get free parking and they're encouraged to use that free parking. So like if you are going to, a park, let's just say, and maybe you wanted to park at Hollywood Studios and hop on the Skyliner. Or, I mean, it's right next to the buses. Or if you're at the TTC, get on the resort monorail. So there are certainly ways, but I think this is just cutting down on that large group use.
Yeah, and I don't know how many people have been utilizing that. I mean, there's sickos like us that go down there and like, hey, we want to go check out this resort, and then we will make our way to make sure that we check out the resort. I imagine during the holidays, the monorail loop is probably a little bit more congested with people that are not staying there that want to see, whether it be the gingerbread house, this, that, and so forth. And there's really no way to get over there if you're staying at a different resort. You would have to go to the TTC and kind of travel. So I we'll see how it goes. But the people out there talking, they do have some questions. So Nick on Twitter was just wondering, it says, cool, but what if I wanted to go to a bar at a resort or someplace that doesn't offer an ADR? And he gets it that from Disney Springs to a park, but Disney Springs to a resort, that's a little much, isn't it? And that kind of covers what you were talking about. But that is the kind of difficulty of, will Disney start seeing some of these bars or some of these quick services not making as much revenue? I doubt it, but maybe,
Yeah, and I mean, there's always a way, and I know that you're not saying it here, but more guests at the resorts that are not paying guests, they do kind of take up some of the amenities and spaces that are reserved for people at that resort. So, like, if you were going to a Holiday Inn in, Kentucky and you were going to go to the bar, like, how many people from the outside do you think are going to that, like, the hotel's bar? Most likely it's, people that are staying there.
Yeah, no. So, and we also see Disney Tourist blog, which came up on a couple of last episodes. So I started following and looking at his content. It says, our unpopular opinion is that this is a positive change for paying guests. Backlash seems largely due to confusion or frustration by those who are exploiting a hack that Walt Disney World is closing. If anything, more rules like this are needed. So, yeah, I mean, if you're used to staying on property, then I think you're certainly happy that you're going to have a little bit more of it to yourself, right?
Yeah. And I mean, like, this goes on. I saw this in several conversations about what is to stop people from parking at Disney Springs, walking over to the buses at Saratoga Springs. And I know that that has been a big thing that's already been happening. And people are taking the bus from the parks to, Saratoga Springs and walking, which then causes, congestion for those buses specifically. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that if you can make it a little bit more restrictive, I don't know how they're going to completely enforce that. Hey, you don't get on a bus unless you're staying here, because there are scenarios where, for instance, we'll stay on property, and let's say Go, your mom is staying off property. Let's say she's staying at one of the Springs hotels or so forth. That's not necessarily on property. She'll go on a bus with us to different parks and different places. And like, you're not going to not let them on. So I do think this is just kind of slowing people down. It's not going to
Yeah.
completely avoid it, but if it can take away, this hack must have been large enough that it got on the radar, that they noticed there is some type of monetary benefit or frustration for guests, that they're going to make this move. But you mentioned like the walking. There's a lot beyond just this transportation. You had a lot of examples of scenarios where you're seeing this happen at resorts, and they're also cracking down on people going to resorts for other activities beyond just buses, right?
Yes. I mean, the number one that I kept seeing over and over was Port Orleans. It was French Quarter. So this was on Walt Disney World Tips and Tricks. It was Shannon Heim. And she says, staying at Port Orleans French Quarter, what a nightmare. We had to pay for transportation to Disney Springs, 4 buses, and we still could not get on. The lobby is pure chaos for beignets. The transportation changes cannot come soon enough for those of us who are used to enjoying the French Quarter. Be prepared if staying here before the changes to transportation. I mean, everybody, you were either team beignet and you're going and you are getting it, or you are team, I like to stay there and I can't get my beignet. So
Well,
who knew this was going to be Battle of the Beignets?
I did not know, and I'm sure, I don't know. It's just one of those weird things is like if you're only offering this one thing at this one place, like part of being in the bubble is that you should go experience it. But I mean, I guess if you start saying, hey, you got to pay to enter these resorts as almost they're a ticketed fee, it's funny that we're at the point now where Disney going to some of these resorts is like an attraction itself. And
Right. And we're going to talk about that on I Want That Too. But we just did a quick stay at the All Stars. And I was talking about how you bought that like All Star shirt. And normally, like, unless you're at the Poly or Grand Floridian or something, you're probably not going to get like the resort merch. But I do think that they're now becoming a part of the appeal, a part of the attraction. So much so that even non-paying guests want to enjoy some of those perks, like the pools. I
yeah,
just have to say this because I was dumbfounded. Like when you're like, I'm out of the hat game. I love a good hack, but I did not know that this was happening. So I saw folks sharing photos of signs going to next to the pools at the resorts. So this one is the Dublin Lagoon pool is exclusive for use of Disney Port Orleans resort guests only. And this was on Dr. Disney, and he says signs and cast members have now arrived at the pools at Port Orleans resorts to make sure only guests of those resorts are using them. Signs like this are not new, but you're typically seeing them on like monorail resorts or like the Yacht and Beach Club, ones that you could easily walk to. So with this one, I saw many places that were giving examples of these YouTubers that were saying that they were parking at, you're not going to believe it, that they're parking at Springs. They're
hmm
taking a bus to Animal Kingdom Lodge and they take their whole family and they just go swim and have an amazing day at the resorts. And you should do it too.
God, yeah, I could see that becoming a problem because I mean, at the end of the day, if this becomes, and some of these pools are, I mean, granted, they're one pool, the beach club has a wristband situation. Anything else, you could just jump in. I know when we bought into DVC 10 years ago, one of the major benefits was pool hopping. We didn't realize that you should only pool hop at the DVC, and they had a list of those. But I remember we went to, was it Port Orleans French Quarter to pool hop, and they let us in. They didn't say
Well,
anything
we
of it.
asked. We went
Right.
to the front desk and said, we're new to DVC. I mean, this is a decade ago. We didn't know. And they were like, okay. Like, but maybe that was like a new amenity, which is long gone with COVID. And they did have some restrictions at the time. We just did
Yeah.
not know.
Yeah. But I mean, like, I could see that being a huge benefit of like, hey, let's go try out different pools. And you could literally
Yes.
stay at these pools almost all day. It's like if you were going to your local community pool, I could see that. But yeah, that could be problematic, especially if everyone is doing that and they're booking, several day stays. I mean, there's nothing stopping you from just saying, hey, I'm an Orlando resident. I'm going to park and go do that. So that could be really problematic.
Right. And then we have over here Tiki Man. This is Tiki Man, unofficial Polynesian. I can't see the rest of the name here, but he's talking about how for years and years and years, he and his family have been staying at the Poly for 4th of July and that they love to go to the beach in front and watch the 4th of July fireworks. And so they were saying, just a couple years ago that now the beach is absolutely packed, and what people were doing was actually taking the chairs off of people's balconies on the first floor
No,
and
geez.
and putting them on the beach. Like, and so now he's saying that, they're not going to stay there anymore. And, they are doing things to help with this, but still, like, what about the beach? Is that just open for everybody to use? You just take a boat over.
Right. Yeah, I think you're
Get
just going
some
to try
pulled
to make
pork nachos and, call it a day.
Well, I think you're just going to try to make it as difficult as possible. I mean, here's the one that came from WDW News today that's basically showing a guest obstacle sign added to the fireworks observation deck. at the Contemporary. So like they're making, it's not going to be impossible to do some of these things. They're just going to make it a little bit more difficult. So I think it's very interesting. And the conversation will continue to stir. In a couple days, it's actually going to go into effect. We'll see what it does. I'm hoping our friends at like Touring Plans do some type of analysis to see how this stuff kind of goes. I know they don't typically look at resorts and stuff like that, but they're data nerds. So maybe they'll look at stuff and see like, all right, does it, how, are you able to get on buses quicker? Do you have to wait as long? I don't know. The people that are going to exploit it are still going to find out new hacks. It's been going on for centuries, finding the different hacks. The YouTubers and the influencers are going to tell people about it because that's how they make their money, to get the views. People are going to do it, and it's just a never-ending circle, in which Disney will just try to continue to course correct. So, but I think it's interesting. We want to hear from you guys. What are your thoughts? If you stay at a resort, should you have it all to yourselves, or hey, is Disney part of buying into the bubble, buying the tickets? You get all these amenities. You're not just buying the theme park, you're buying the whole Disney World. I think it's interesting topic of conversation, and let's hear what you guys have to say.
But when we come back, we're going to talk about something else that's causing a lot of conversation this week. Toy Story 5 hit theaters, and we found some interesting Pixar posts that got a lot of attention. So after this,
study,
and play come together on a Windows 11 PC.
And for a limited time, college students get
the best of both worlds.
Get the Unreal College Deal. Everything you need to study and play with select Windows 11 PCs. Eligible students get a year of Microsoft 365 Premium and a year of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with a custom color Xbox wireless controller. Learn more at windows.com/student offer. While supplies last. Ends June 30th. Terms at aka.ms/collegepc.
This summer, Prime Video takes you back before Legally Blonde, before law school, and into the world of Elle Woods in high school. Set in 1995, this Gemini vegetarian knows exactly who she is until her family moves from Bel Air to Seattle. Packed with iconic fashion, 90s nostalgia, and a throwback soundtrack, Elle proves one thing. Law school was hard. High school was harder. From the world of Legally Blonde, watch Elle, a new original series only on Prime Video July 1st.
and we're back. So, Eric, I know that you were on social and something that you kept seeing, and you didn't know if this was AI or where it originated, but it's been kind of floating around. And it's the Pixar ranking pre-Toy Story 5, right?
Right. So I saw this on several social media posts, and I clicked on it immediately because I was intrigued because it's a social media post that has all of the Pixar movies in a DVD case or Blu-ray case, and they're all stacked, right? And they basically said, my Pixar ranking pre-Toy Story 5 from top to bottom. And they basically ranked all their Pixar movies with the DVD case. So I thought it was a cool visual, and I looked at it, and I'm like, I don't even know if they made some of these because, some of these were direct releases on Disney Plus. And I started thinking, yeah, they're probably all on some type of Blu-ray or DVD at this point in time. But and I just kind of scroll past it and look much at it, keep going. Then it showed up again on a different social media and a different social media. And I don't know if it's the same gentleman, and you guys be the judge here. The one that I found most recently that had the most comments and most engagement was a Javo, lack of surprises on X. It's Javier078. So if you want to look this up, but it essentially has my Pixar ranking, and there were some hot takes. So first, let's understand that there are probably 30, how many Pixar movies? A lot.
I think there's 31, right?
Yeah. So, and he had them ranked. And I think some of the controversies here is number one, I think he had Soul as number one, which is an interesting choice for most people to say, hey, this is all of the Pixar movies. I'm not saying it's wrong or anything. Then it had Ratatouille, Incredibles, Toy Story, Up, Toy Story 3, and then kind of go down the list, right? Now, this is their personal opinion. One of the things that I thought was very interesting is Monsters, Inc. was really low, and it had everybody in a tizzy. So what we do here is we go to the comments and we see what people are saying, because this is one person's subjective opinion. But I did have a really good time reading these comments. Lauren, did you get to check out any of the comments?
Well, Carson was very opinionated. Congrats on the worst ranking of all time, dude.
Yeah.
Did you just hit randomize or what?
Yeah, it says, I guess the only positive thing in here is that the Pixar Facebook can agree together that Cars 2 is considered the worst Pixar movie. And that's where the positive ends about this ranking. And the funny thing is, I will tell you, Lauren, this gentleman, Javo, commented back to almost nearly everyone on this post. It literally came back with some type of comment. And some of them were really, really mean. And some of them were, just creative in a sense. So I typically didn't take all the mean ones, but let's be real. It is tough for us to really know if this was engagement bait.
Right. Somebody said, they were like, man, too bad this post wasn't monetized. You could have paid for a couple movies because that's how big it was. But that's what we like to do in the Disney community. We like to debate these kinds of things that everybody else would probably not even care of or even consider. But I also took to the internet to get some rankings. So I looked at the overall internet, and this was largely sourced Rotten Tomato, IMDb, Letterboxd scores, critic list, fan discussion. So this is bringing all of that together. And I think that this might surprise you as well. I mean, I don't know, but they're saying that Wally and Toy Story 2 are consistently coming up as the top favorites. Wally, Toy Story 2. Would you say that Wally is the best Pixar movie?
I think it's a beautiful movie. Now, granted, I've seen Wall-E multiple times, but it's been a while since I've watched it recently, and I remember really enjoying it. I think from a theatrical perspective, I think the critics easily could be scaling that because it is a beautifully done film. I believe they go 40 some minutes at the very beginning without like actual words or something like that. It's just a very nicely done. I can see Toy Story 1 and Toy Story 2 being critically acclaimed. They were very ahead of their time. And yeah, I mean, for the most part, now would it, of course, what I did is
would you put that in your 5? Like Ratatouille?
I don't.
I love Ratatouille,
but I do think people really enjoy it. Now, granted, I have a cool poster that's 100 movies like watch list from IMDb that you scratch it out and stuff like that. And I think Toy Story 1 and maybe Toy Story 5, and I do believe Wall-E's on that list. Coco's on that list. So there are a decent amount of Pixar films that are considered the top 100. So, of course, I printed them out and I gave it to my family and I said, hey, you guys should give us. Now, we're not going to go through an entire tier list and go through, but I am interested in your hot takes of what you like. And I got my son Hunter's here. I don't think Lainey ever filled it out, and we didn't bother to ask our 9-year-old. Lord knows that would have been too much. So, Lauren, did you went through? Did you have any particular favorites or ones that you absolutely hated?
Yeah, I'll just give you a couple. So the top ones, I didn't even realize how much I liked Up until I started looking at this list. And what I did, because there's 31, I wrote out the top, like middle ones, and then ones I absolutely just do not like or resonate with me to kind of get started working out the list. But I just kept thinking, I'm like, what are ones that I'd watch over and over and over again? I love Up, Coco, Monsters, Inc. Apparently, I just want to cry. Obviously, I like Inside Out and Toy Story. Those are amongst the top. I could not even get through Elia, which is unfortunate. I didn't like Lightyear either. And nobody in our family seemed to really like Brave. How about you?
Well, that was the thing. There was a small period of time where things were coming out on Disney Plus, or that's when we were watching them post-COVID. And half of these movies, I watched the beginning and then fell asleep. And that's not saying the movie was bad. It's just saying that I am getting older and the third child has really taken a lot out of me. So I had to highlight a couple. I've watched almost all of these movies, and I think there were 3 of them that I like literally fell asleep during. Luca, which I believe I liked until I fell asleep. Elemental, which I believe I liked until I fell asleep. And I have yet to watch Elio, so that's the one. We did just finish Hoppers, and we did see Toy Story 5, which I thought was quite amazing. But yeah, when I was going through, I put down my absolute worst. We saw Lightyear in the theaters, and I thought it was trash. It's not any controversy.
If Jim Hill's listening, it's going to crush his soul. He loves some Lightyear.
I know. Well, I just didn't like it. I mean, it was fine enough. I mean, it had a story. I went into it thinking that I wanted more Toy Story love because I kind of love all the Toy Stories. Really enjoyed 5. I'm a huge fan of 4, and I know that's the one that most people don't like. But come on, Duke Kaboom, guys, come on! Like that was just it. Like I love that. And Toy Story 3, I think, is my favorite of the bunch. I really enjoyed Toy Story 3. But what it came to conclusion when I was going through my entire list. And this is what would make this Java really mad. I really do think my favorite Pixar film is Monsters, Inc. And I can't really gauge why. I think it was the first Pixar movie I saw in a theater. I definitely saw Monsters, Inc. in the theater, I think in 2001. And I don't know, but I just think those characters live on. They're good. I think the movie holds up. I believe Jim Henson went on the record, or somebody from the Henson family was like, this should have been a Muppets movie. And Jim tells you a whole story why. So I don't know why, but I think Monsters, Inc. And this is where that gentleman had it super low and people were giving him crap. Now, I think people equally give me crap because it's my top. But I went Monsters, Inc., Coco, Toy Story 3, Inside Out, and Toy Story 4, which is my hot take because I love Toy Story 4. Yeah. And then the ones that I need to see again, because I've only seen it once, is like I liked Onward, I really like Soul, and I really like Wall-E, but I haven't seen Wall-E enough to go back and be like, because I could see Wall-E really jumping to my top 5 because I really enjoyed it. I just don't remember enough about it.
Yeah, I mean, the craziest hot take of all of these was Hunter. That's our 19-year-old, and he picked Onward
Yeah,
as
but
his
he's number
favorite
1.
battle of all time. And I mean, I think
Yeah,
Drew would probably agree with that. Didn't Drew like write a book about it?
I think he did The Art of Onward. Probably that Onward was a beautiful movie. Now, granted, I reflect on it really well because I lost my dad when I was 16. So this is a movie about reflecting when hanging out with your dad. So there is elements there, but it is also very fantasy and D&D, and Hunter likes that. So I could see myself really liking it. And this was one that was almost crushed by COVID. I think it was out in the theaters for 2 weeks, and then COVID happened and went right to Disney Plus. So it's just hidden. But I don't know how many people relate with that kind of fantasy genre. I think in average, most people relate with others. And Hunter had things like The Incredibles. He had Wall-E as 3 and Ratatouille and Toy Story. I see Coco consistently. Was Coco in your top 5?
Coco was in my top 5, like always. But I did want to quickly go to the people's internet and tell you what their kind of top 5 was. And again, Ratatouille was number 1, Wall-E, Coco, The Incredibles, and Toy Story 2. But they do note here that Luca has a surprisingly large online fan community. Go you, like Luca fans. Did make the top 10, which blew my mind. But that's what our friends over at Reddit are talking about. And then I needed to see by franchise, and I'll just give you the top 3. And this is cultural impact to Toy Story, Cars, Finding Nemo. But I wanted to see like the money and had them ranked out by the money. And Inside Out 2 in 2024 grossed $1.69 billion at 1. Incredibles 2 was $1.2 billion. Toy Story 4, 1 billion 73, whatever that is. Toy Story 3, then Finding Dory. So, and this obviously is not taking into account Toy Story 5, which had went gangbusters
Killer,
in their opening weekend. So I definitely some hot takes. I just still with Wall-E. I know you said you thought maybe it was largely driven by critics, but I mean on IMDb it had a 1.3 million ratings.
Wow.
So I mean the people like it. I don't think I have ever seen it. I think it's the only movie on this list that I've not seen. And maybe they lost me at like 40 minutes with no words.
No, I don't think you would have liked it. I mean, it's art. It is really good. So it sounds like we got something to watch here over the weekend, and I get to scratch off on my top 100 movie watch list because the whole goal here is I got to watch it since I got the poster. So I think that's what we do. But we want to hear from everyone out there. We'd love to hear your rankings. Where are we wrong? Where is Javo wrong? Where are you right? What did you like? What's your favorite Pixar movie? What's the worst? Because right now the worst, most people are going Cars 2, The Good Dinosaur. You see Lightyear kind of down in that bottom. That's where most people are going. But what's your thoughts? Are they wrong? Is Cars 2 the best? I like Cars 2 actually, so that's one of my hot takes. I think it was a great spy thriller. But we want to hear from you. Did you guys see Toy Story 5? All types of stuff that we want to hear from you guys. So let us know in the comments.
Yes, and that does it for this week's episode of Diz and Hers. For more, make sure you're hitting up DizandHers.com. There you'll find articles, episodes, and updates. And if Disney's your vibe, make sure to subscribe.
And remember, watch what you post online. You might end up in next week's episode. Thanks for listening.